this is where we'll conclude my my journey of this last week with all the what we had to deal with. But coming in from Bangor to DFW the next day, it was a typical arrival coming in from the east, and we were anticipating a visual approach to 17 left. Now, anyone familiar with the DFW airport knows that there's a lot of runways, a lot of approaches, a lot of arrivals. They use the four corners methodology. So they bring the traffic in from one of the corners. We were coming in from the northeast corner, and on an arrival, and the aircraft in front of us was an air shuttle aircraft, and they were given a vector, descend to 4,000, and then go to a fix, and then maintain. They were told maintain 190 knots, and you're clear the visual. We, the legacy aircraft, were behind them. Now, I have audio from this, so that I'm not going to go into detail too much, but the aircraft behind them was us, legacy. I don't know why the audio's messed up. They say a different airline, but that's not us. And they tell us kind of the same thing. We're all in trail of each other. They usually stack us about 3, 4, 5 miles apart. And then there was another aircraft behind us. It all kind of got real sticky when the regional jet in front of us decided to go to their approach speed around 12 miles from the runway. And it created kind of a domino effect. And we're going to listen to that right now.
Air Shuttle 9882, trying to maintain 3,000.
Down 3,000, Shuttle 9882.
American 1536, descending 7.5 for 6.
American 1536, regional approach, Roger, 17 left.
American 1536, Roger, 17 left.
American 2946, flighting 230.
230 on the heading, American 2946.
Air Shuttle 9882, clear direct leg range on the localizer, 17 left, report DFW, 11 o'clock, 15 miles.
All right.
Little confusion there, because like it's
Shuttle
not.
9882, I'm sorry, direct.
Air Shuttle 9882, clear direct inwood, inwood on the localizer, 17 left, report DFW, 11 o'clock, 14 miles.
All right, we're direct inwood now, and we'll approach and let you know here, Shuttle 9882.
Air Shuttle 9882, reduce speed 190.
We're on the 190, Shuttle 9882.
And you got still yet? Air Shuttle 9882, report DFW, didn't you say you had it yet?
Shuttle 9882, we're still looking.
American 1536, going to maintain 4,000.
1536, leaving 6 for 4,000.
Shuttle 9882 has the airport in sight.
Air Shuttle 9882, clear visual approach 17 left, join at leg correction inwood.
We'll join at inwood, clear for the approach, 17 left.
So far, so good.
9882.
American 2946, turn left at direct inwood, reduce speed 190, report DFW, 11 o'clock, 15 miles.
I meant to say legacy.
190 direct to Inwood, we'll call the airport, American 2946.
American 2946, going to maintain 3,000.
3,000 now, American 2926.
American 1368, descending 6,000, direct right.
American 1360, regional approach, 17 left, is going to maintain 5,000.
17 left, down to 5, American 1360.
Airport's in sight, American 2946.
American 2926, clear visual approach 17 left, reduce speed 190.
Slow to 190, we're doing that right now, and clear to visual for a runway 17 left.
My captain's super cool.
Air Shuttle 9882, what's your speed?
9882, we're about 130.
Oh my god. American 2946, reduce to 160.
160, American 2946.
9882, we'll pick it up if you need.
We do need it. Up to 17, you're better to debush to 9882.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Air Shuttle 9882, you got a Airbus 319, 3.5 behind you. So if you can
60 knot overtake.
Inside the marker.
You bet. We'll pick it up. 9882.
American 1536, turn left heading 200, join the 17 left localizer, report DFW, 11 o'clock, 15 miles.
Left 200, join the low 17 left, airport site, American 1536.
American 1536, clear visual approach 17 left and maintain 190 knots.
First Division 17 left, 190 for American 1536.
American 2946, you can reduce to your final, please.
Okay, we'll slow all the way back, American 2946.
Yeah, American 2946, you're following a regional jet, well, 11 o'clock, 3.25 mile. He slowed back outside the marker, and he's picking the speed up right now, showing 140 across the ground.
All right, we're just slowing it back.
Still doing 140.
140, so, and we got him inside American 2946.
American 1536, reduce speed to 190. You can expect further speed reduction soon.
American 1536, we're there.
That was behind us.
Airfield
Yeah, Domino's.
9882, contact tower 127.5.
17.5, 9882.
American 2946, contact tower 127.5.
27.5, American 2946, good day.
That's it. And so
That was hilarious.
now
The controller.
I downloaded this audio. I wrote the Zulu time down, and I downloaded the audio off liveatc.net, and you can do that through the archive. I had to go and find it, and then I put this in my audio software editing, and I took out all the long pauses that were in between. It didn't happen that fast. That's like a 2-minute thing. So in real time, there were a lot more pauses in there. A lot of them I pulled out just for the sake of time for this. Now, for those following along, there were 3 aircraft involved here. I removed all the other airplanes that were just random. And so what happened was there was a CRJ in front. They were told 190 knots, fly to the fix. Now, it wasn't the final approach fix. It was the fix before that. So we're talking about 10, maybe 11 miles out on 17 left ILS. Now, you cleared a visual, but they also gave you guidance to a fix, because even if you're doing a visual approach, you're backing it up with any available nav aid. That's standard operating procedure for almost every single airline that I've ever known that has that. And so this crew was told 190 knots. Now, if you're not familiar, I could see making the mistake of slowing down early, but when you're going into a Class Bravo airspace, you do as fast as you can or whatever they assign you until landing is assured or the final approach fix. That's when the final approach fix, which is G-bush on this particular approach, is normally when you would drop the gear, get in final configuration. You're usually about 2,300 feet off the ground, and then you would come in and just perform a regular landing because you'll be stabilized by 1,000 feet. No problem. So even though it was a visual approach, you're still expected to fly the guidance that you have available to you and the speeds last assigned until you're on switch to tower and you're inside the final approach fix where you can get configured so you could be stabilized. This crew went from maintain 190 knots, cleared the approach, and they immediately went to their approach speed, which is just slightly lower than 140 knots. It's 138 knots approximately. Now, and I apologize for the audio. They kept screwing it up. We were Legacy Airlines. I was flying, and we kind of saw this happening. And when we heard him say, "Oh God," we immediately, I didn't even wait for them to tell me to slow down. I could see on the TCAS that this guy's close, and we were rustling the tail feathers. So I immediately started slowing it down and started reacting. And then you can hear my captain, who is the pilot monitoring on the radio, saying, "Yeah, we're already at 190." And then, "Oh yeah, we're already at 140," because we were anticipating what was happening. We had very good situational awareness. Now, this can happen to any crew. I don't want to, sit there and point the finger and be the Monday morning quarterback kind of guy. I'm not saying that. This could happen to anyone. Maybe the guy was new. Maybe they're on IOE. Who knows? It doesn't matter. What I wanted to display here was that there are protocols that sometimes are unspoken but need to be understood. And going into a major airport, you do what's last assigned or best forward speed until otherwise indicated. And they'll tell you what speed they want because they're stacking you tight, especially under visual conditions. 3-mile separation is the minimum. It's also their maximum. So the minute you start to really encroach on that, it really can kind of cause a go-around, which nobody wants. The controller doesn't want it. They have to file a report. The pilots don't want it. They have to file a report. So everybody just wants to have this like zipper effect and everybody land one after the other in a coordinated fashion. Now, what you didn't hear in that audio, because it was from a different frequency and a little bit later, was the aircraft behind us asked if they should do an S-turn, which at low altitude in an Airbus, you don't want to do an S-turn on final if you don't have to. The controller actually said, no, the spacing's good. We ended up timing everything really well. Because I anticipated the slowdown, we ended up having plenty of separation. The embarrassing part was after, and I don't have audio for that, but they missed a turn and ended up doing a U-turn in front of us and ended up nose to nose with us. And then the ground controller was like, okay, just do a U-turn there on the taxiway, stop, and wait for the Airbuses to pass you. And so, of course, then they did a U-turn, and then we turned in front of them, and so did the aircraft behind us, and then they followed. And they were having a hard time. And this happens. It's human factors. This is what happens. That's why we have the threat and error management system, the Swiss cheese effect. I was listening to an earlier podcast, one of my favorites, the Airline Pilot Guy show, and they were talking about maybe sometimes the Swiss cheese holes aren't big enough, and they're more like the Funyun holes. That was funny. I got to give props to those guys. And so, yeah, these kind of things happen. Be patient. Be situationally aware. Don't be overcritical, because it can happen to anyone. I mean, I've slowed early a few times and kind of got the slap on the wrist. Did I tell you to slow? I learned my lesson, though. Roger, have you had these experiences where you have to go around because the aircraft in front of you is like dragging their feet on the runway or anything like that?
Well, the answer to that is definitely yes for me, but we also need to put that caveat in there that I operate in a little bit of a different world. We do go arounds. I mean, it's not frequent, but I would say a couple times a year, and mostly because a lot of these airports that we fly into are GA airports, and that airplane that's in front of you that's dragging their feet is because they don't have any other. They don't have another choice. If it's a Cessna 172 or a Cessna 152 or a Piper Arrow, because that's what they're flying, I mean, them doing their 60 knots is something that's entirely normal. And we might be coming up on their tail at 120, which is generally about our approach speed, at about 120 knots, and there's nothing that they can do. And so every once in a while, because of controllers, the approach to tower or something, we just get too close, and then we do have to do a go around. That's happened a couple times. It's not that big of a deal, but that's just because of the nature of flying into the training airports that we fly into sometimes.
Yeah.
In your scenario, yeah, I had to laugh when the controller on the radio, you could tell I was in disbelief about what was happening. Please don't, when you're flying into a Class Bravo airport, please don't slow to 120 knots at 10 miles. That's just, I mean, common sense kind of says that there are airplanes that are unable to fly at 130 knots and flat out unwilling to fly 130 knots.
Yeah.
For that far. And that goes back to what you had brought up as being situationally aware. Yeah, I don't know. The Monday morning quarterbacking, I don't know what was going on. It sounded like, was that a maintenance flight? I mean, usually a 9882 or whatever it was is usually.
There are other issues that they had before
revenue.
They got to the gate. They actually almost went into the wrong ramp. There's a lot of things that went wrong on that flight, and we got to hear it all.
Get into that.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
DFW can kind of get in. I mean,
yeah,
is a intimidating airport on the ground. I've been there several times, and so we'll give them that. But let's. I mean, at that level, when you're flying an aircraft and you're probably capturing an ILS into 17 left, even though it's visual, you're probably backing it up with an ILS, and you're flying 130 knots into a Class Bravo DFW airport.
World's busiest airport.
Right
now.
Come on.
Yeah. So now, a couple things that we had a discussion after we got to the gate about it. It wasn't overcritical discussion. It was just like, man, these DFW controllers are really nice. And my captain said that, and I said, what do you mean? He goes like, if this would have been JFK or Chicago or any of these other busy aircraft, maybe even Atlanta, I was expecting them to say, air shuttle, cancel your approach clearance, climb to maintain 3,000, fly runway heading and turn left, and then recycle them into, basically have them go around and recycle them into the line, because if they would have done that, they would not have had this domino effect of all these aircraft having to slow and possibly do S-turns on final behind them, and they wouldn't have lost the separation. So the fact that they worked with this crew, and we all, I think that added to the fact that we, right behind them on the legacy flight, were more situationally aware, and we slowed down early because we saw what was happening. And then the pilot, the female voice you heard, that was behind us, the other pilot, I guess they were an American flight, I don't know. And so they kind of saw this happening, and they even suggested, hey, do you want us to do an S-turn on final or something? Or, you turn off the loc and come back just to add some spacing. The fact that we were all kind of on board with what was happening, they didn't have to do that. So the controllers, I got to give my hats off to them in Dallas. They did a good job. They were nice about it. I can't tell you how many times, just cancel your approach clearance, go around. It's like they get frustrated because of this kind of thing. So yeah, my hat's off to them. Good job.